Long ago, in the ancient kingdom of Atani, hidden quietly between 5 green hills, there lived a king named Ahana. Now Ahana was no ordinary ruler. Oh no, this was a king warriors feared, chiefs respected, and enemies prayed never to meet in battle. His palace was magnificent. His army? Powerful. His wealth? Like rivers that never dried. But inside the heart of King Ahana lived something dangerous. Pride. Not ordinary pride. The kind that blinds a man slowly, without him knowing. King Ahana believed nobody was greater than him. Not the elders. Not the ancestors. Not even nature itself. Then one rainy season, something strange began to happen. A wind began to follow the king. Whenever Ahana rode through the village on his camel, the wind moved behind him like a shadow. Whoosh! Dust rose into the air. Trees swayed strangely, leaves whispered as though they were gossiping about the king. At first, the people celebrated. "The ancestors are protecting our king," they shouted joyfully. Warm village laughter fades softly. But before long, the kingdom began to fear the wind. Whenever the king became angry, the wind became violent. If he shouted at his servants, boom! Thunder shook the palace windows. If innocent people were punished, trees mysteriously fell in the marketplace, and sometimes darkness covered the land for an entire day. Children stopped playing outside, even birds refused to fly near the palace, and old women who normally never stopped talking became silent. Then one evening, a crippled old man arrived at the palace gate. Bent back, slow footsteps, a walking stick in one hand, and a small talking drum tied around his waist. The guards burst into laughter. "Ah, look at this old man." "What business do you have with the king?" But the old man remained calm, very calm. He looked at them and said softly, "I have come to warn the king about the wind that follows him." The guards laughed even harder, but somehow word reached King Ahana. And out of curiosity, the king summoned him. Inside the great palace hall, the old man stood silently, and around the throne, the wind circled slowly. Whoosh! King Ahana smiled proudly. "You see," he said, "even the wind obeys me." But the old man shook his head slowly. "No, my king. The wind does not follow you because you are powerful." Sudden silence. The entire hall froze. Then, the old man lifted his talking drum and struck it once. Boom! Immediately, the room turned cold.
Hear the drum of
torches
doom!
flickered,
The shadows
and
gather,
the wind
king.
began to whisper.
What madness is
At
this?
first,
Doom
the voices
comes
were
for the
faint,
throne!
then clearer
Beware the
and clearer,
coming storm!
until the king recognized them.
King, you
The
took my
farmer
land.
whose land he stole.
Your
The widow
soldiers
whose
killed me
innocent
during
son was
tax
imprisoned.
collection.
The little
But
girl who
that's my
died
son
after
was wrongly
soldiers burned her
imprisoned.
village during tax collection. The pregnant woman whose cries were ignored. Every pain, every cry, every suffering the king refused to hear was living inside the wind. King Ahana trembled, his hand shook, and for the first time in many years, the mighty king fell to his knees and wept, not as a ruler, not as a conqueror, but as a man, finally seeing the weight of his actions. The old man looked at him with pity and said, "A ruler who refuses to hear the tears of his people will one day hear them in the storm." That night, King Ahana could not sleep. The whispers followed him everywhere, and the next morning, something unbelievable happened. The king removed his royal shoes, stepped down from his throne, and walked barefoot through the kingdom. The people watched in shock. He visited the poor. He released innocent prisoners. He returned stolen lands. And for the first time, he listened instead of commanding. Days passed, weeks passed. Slowly, the wind became softer. The storm stopped. Children laughed outside again. Birds returned to the skies. Peace returned to Atani. Then, one quiet evening, as King Ahana sat beneath a mango tree, he noticed something strange. The wind was gone. It no longer followed him. And for the first time in his life, the king smiled, not with pride, but with peace. As for the old blind man, he was never seen again. But the elders still say, whenever a leader becomes too proud, the wind begins to move differently, as if it is listening, listening.